I actually really started getting interested in health. Like I kind of just did what I was told and believed like status quo, what the doctor says is word, until I had my daughter who regressed into non-speaking autism when she was 13 months.
Mhm.
Everything was happening normally and typically. And after a well visit, if you catch my drift, she lost everything, lost all of her eye contact, language. It was all gone.
And welcome back, guys, to the last episode of the Women's Health and Weight Loss series. It has been an amazing series, and we're going to finish it off with a bang. We are here with a good friend of mine, Sarah Kleiner from Sarah Kleiner Wellness. She's an amazing friend. She just had a kid. I just had a kid. We have a lot to talk about. We agree on so much. I've been able to watch her grow in her business and her impact, and seeing her go from carnivore to introducing carbs, to getting really focused on leptin resistance and everything else that she is passionate about. And I'm excited to go through the weeds of this conversation with her. So without further ado, how you doing today, Sarah?
Great. I'm so excited to chat with you because I've been kind of on the other side here watching you for your, through your evolution of like keto and now really helping a lot of women and being like such an amazing voice to give women permission to start adding some carbs in when things aren't going right. And I just appreciate that so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation. I feel like there's a few people in this space that I really, when it comes to like nutritional approaches and understanding like the individual and applying it to the individual, especially when it comes to women and the uniqueness that they have as women, few and far between. You're someone that I really jive with. So I was really excited to have this conversation. Uh so to start, I kind of want to, obviously, my audience may not know you, so please feel free to kind of introduce yourself. What's your story? How do you get to where you were? What's the elevator speech?
Yeah, I mean, I actually really started getting interested in health. Like I kind of just did what I was told and believed like status quo, what the doctor says is word, until I had my daughter who regressed into non-speaking autism when she was 13 months.
Mhm.
Everything was happening normally and typically. And after a well visit, if you catch my drift, she lost everything, lost all of her eye contact, language. It was all gone. And I have videos documenting it because people don't believe you, even though your own family members even are like, well, I don't think that action. I'm like, oh, remember, here's the video. So I have a lot of videos documenting that, but that sent me down like the rabbit hole and that was my red pill moment. I think everybody has like that red pill moment when it
Mhm.
comes to their health. And that was the moment when I was like, holy crap, nothing that I think is actually legit when it comes to health. And so I started down this path of health. She's 15 now. So all those years ago, and I went to a vegan diet for her as a baby. She never really could do without meat. Like she just loved meat. And so I actually was feeding her kind of a grass-fed meat carnivore style type of a diet when she was really little. And fast forward to now, even though she still has profound special needs, the kid has like a gorgeous jaw. Like we had her at the dentist a week ago, and the dentist was like, she doesn't need braces. Her teeth are beautiful. The heck did you do? And I'm like, she's kind of just loved to eat meat when she was little. So I had her, I started her down this like holistic path when she was very little and led me down my own path, became a yoga teacher because I needed something to help me manage stress, became vegan. Fast forward 2.5 years into that, totally wrecked my health as a vegan. Was injured all the time, sick all the time, couldn't keep weight on. I thought it was supposed to be the world's healthiest diet. So I was like, okay, U-turn. I think a lot of people do that when they think about health. They're like, oh, I'll go plant-based, and it's a disaster. Um, Fast forward, stress and just raising a special needs child. My gut became a mess. My cortisol levels were a disaster. My adrenals were wrecked. And I just had a ton of health problems. And as a yoga teacher, I wasn't really able to practice and teach yoga the way that I wanted to. And so I had a friend of mine who's a functional medicine doc. She recommended the carnivore diet to me. And at the end of 2018, I'm like, you are smoking crack, lady. Like, eating zero plants? Like, are you out of your mind? And but I was so desperate at that time that I said, fine, I'll do this meat diet. Why not? I started listening to Michaela Peterson, Jordan, the whole rabbit hole we kind of all go down with carnivore. I just dove in and said, I'll try it for 30 days. And I did. At the end of 30 days, IBS, joint pain, skin issues, like gone. And the mental clarity that I had at the end of that 30 days was like nothing I had ever had. I mean, it was insane. So I ended up doing this diet for 2 years. Because it felt so good. And then decided I wanted to start trying for another baby at age 41 and thought, my hormones are super optimized on carnivore because everything really did feel good. Then I started trying to get pregnant and having multiple miscarriages. And then we decided to try IVF because I was like, well, this is what the doctors are telling me. Again, I was got tricked into trusting the doctors again about my own health because just the messaging is so strong. And we did 2 rounds of IVF and they did not work. And it was at that point that I made another paradigm shift after meeting Dr. Jack Cruz and was like, I started understanding quantum health and circadian rhythms and the need for seasonal foods, seasonal carbohydrates. Found out my T3 was super, super low after 2 years of carnivore and doing a lot of fasting. Hormones were not as optimal as I thought they were. And once I implemented these changes with circadian biology and quantum biology, really, and eating more seasonal whole foods, was able to get pregnant without using IVF and give birth at the age of 43 to my son. So it's like a lot of layers there to the story to kind of get to where I'm at. But, I love kind of implementing all of these things because food is a form of light code, right? Food is grown under specific light codes. And so I see it all as this like umbrella that fits together. And that's why I kind of shifted my brand away from Carnivore Yogi to Sarah Kleiner Wellness, because I wanted to encompass all these different principles and really help people get to the root cause of their problems. So that's the little elevator speech in a nutshell.
No, I love it. There's so much that I want to dive into. So, all right, I wrote a bunch of stuff down that really just clicked to me. But the one thing, so I want to back up. I want to talk a little bit about something that I've noticed, especially with women, and obviously this is women's health and weight loss. So men do this, but we're talking specifically about women in this series. With carnivore and things like that. What we notice and what I tend to run into, and I'm sure you do too, is I get a lot of clients that are, to be frank, flabbergasted because they went to carnivore and saw such healing, and then all of a sudden carnivore seemed in a weird way to be causing the issues that it took away, and they're not understanding why. And I have my theories and what I believe is causing that, but I'd love to hear it from you. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Why do you think they go from a standard American diet, they heal on carnivore, but then for some reason, for some, not all, I think it's really important to clarify, not all, but for some women, they start seeing the same issues that they saw that made them get on it in the first place, and they end up having to reintroduce carbohydrates seasonally, unseasonally, to their diet to fix that. Well, why do you think that is?
I think it's multi-layered and multifaceted, honestly. And yeah, I don't see it in every single woman. There are some women that do long-term carnivore and they seem like they're doing great. So I don't want to blanket it, but I do see a lot of women that come to carnivore and, like me, digestive issues, skin issues, like it's like it just calms your entire body and your entire immune system. Everything just chills. But I think that cortisol dysregulation begins to come into play. I think that the infradian rhythm, a 28-day cycle, and how our hormones kind of wax and wane over that 28-day period comes into play as well. And we don't respect that. We try to just eat the same thing every single day. And not having carbohydrates during specific times in the month, I find for some women can be stressful, and they're trying to do carnivore and they end up like binging.
Yeah.
They're like, why is it that every month I go on this binge, and they just binge on like whatever crap they can find around the house, Lara bars, the healthy, paleo bars or whatever, like they don't binge on anything like ice cream and cookies. Some of them do, but that's what I found myself kind of doing in the beginning of carnivore. So I think that they're not, that's the infradian rhythm, and that can create an issue with cortisol. I also think there's a, oh, go ahead.
What is, sorry, everybody's not, can't see. I waved my finger at her. What is the, back up just a little bit, because I actually don't know this. Educate all of us.
Mhm.
What is the infradian rhythm?
Okay, so we all have a circadian rhythm, right? So that's a 24-hour-ish kind of cycle. Our hormones release at specific times of the day. So I'm sitting outside right now. My body knows it's 10 a.m. and I've already been through sunrise, which is the signal to stop melatonin, start cortisol. UVA light is where we synthesize serotonin that gets recycled into melatonin. We also have testosterone, progesterone, thyroid hormone. All your sex hormones are synthesized in UVA light in the morning. Light coming in through the eye via the suprachiasmatic nucleus communicates with the hypothalamus in the brain to release specific hormones at these times, right?
Yep.
We all have that, men and women. We all have a circannual rhythm, so our hormones are different in the summer than they are in the winter.
Agreed.
There's pretty interesting literature about that. Our microbiome is actually different in the summer than it is in the winter. Very interesting literature. And women have a 28-day infradian rhythm. And you even have this infradian rhythm if you are done with your reproductive years. If you don't have a menstrual cycle, you still have this infradian rhythm. And it's essentially, a lot of women sync up with the moon. And having your circadian rhythms in order is actually can help kind of fast forward this. But as we go through a 28-day cycle, right, we have hormonal fluctuations, we have energy fluctuations. You know this from working with women. Certain times of the month, we have more, like in the first 10 days of the cycle, the estrogen's a little higher. We can build more muscle. We have more energy, more creative. And we get to ovulation, and things are a little bit different. Some women, again, have this great, beautiful skin and energy boost. And then we get to that latter half of the cycle, the luteal phase, and we're kind of lower on the energy. Progesterone becomes higher. It should become higher. And so we kind of follow this like curve throughout 28 days. And again, even though you don't have a reproductive cycle, you still have an infradian rhythm. And so certain exercises, certain foods, certain stressors like fasting or cold therapy or even sauna are going to be more optimally done at specific times during the month. And then that last week of the cycle before, your bleed date, or even if you're not having a bleed, just before your cycle starts again, that infradian rhythm, you got to be more careful with things like cold therapy, fasting, so it is like it's this beautiful symphony. I always say men are like a rock band. Like they have this everything kind of happens in a 24-hour cycle, and women have this like 28-day rhythm that they follow. And I've gotten really into studying infradian rhythm and how it works with diet and stressors, and what women sync up to the moon. Like, so women that are, and I learned this when I was trying to get pregnant with my son, I synced up so that my bleed date was actually on the new moon, and I was fertile on the full moon, ovulated on the full moon, right? And conceived on the full moon. And this is a really cool thing. Melatonin actually suppresses ovulation. So what's happening at a full moon? You're getting all this bright light at night. So it's suppressing your melatonin. So you're more fertile, right? So, and women, now that I've had my son, I just finally started getting my cycle back again. I'm breastfeeding you 7 months, but now I am having the opposite, right? So I am ovulating on the new moon, and I'm having bleed on the full moon. So, and there's some really interesting talk and science behind this, and it shows that women that are more like done with the children that are still having cycles tend to flip to that schedule. So, to think that we're supposed to just eat the same diet and do the same exercises and have the same stressors like all month long, it's just, it's not good. And I think it can really create damage and women in a lot of confusion too. It's like, why, can my husband or my partner, this guy over here, do all this stuff and I can't, it messes me up, right? Or this diet.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. It's something I really want to dive into, but I just want to reinforce that because I think it's really important for listeners. When I'm working with a client, I think one of the most empowering things that we get to do is walk them through how to properly eat and train depending on where they're at in their cycle. Like letting them know that like, hey, because I think out of sight, out of mind, right? And so a lot of women don't even know what a luteal phase is. They don't know what the follicular phase
Right.
is. And so they just think, oh, they don't even realize that every month around the same time they feel like garbage. It's just like today I feel like
Right.
garbage. Like they don't connect the dots. And so being able to empower them
Right.
and go, hey, look, like there's a phase of your cycle where you're going to feel like $1,000,000 and you are able to track this body temperature, a tracking app, the moon, which is really fascinating. I want to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you can track this. You can empower yourself to get the most out of your, fat loss goals, health goals, whatever, and then cater to your body during that luteal phase and not because I feel like they add another level of stress and depression on top of what's already happening because they don't understand what's going on. And so that the psychology gets in the way and they can't rationalize what's going on. And so because they don't know. And so they just, oh my gosh, I just feel terrible. Oh my gosh. And they'd have no idea why. And so they're just down about it. And it exacerbates the symptoms, it exacerbates the cortisol, it exacerbates the hormone imbalance. And when you can go into the luteal phase and go, okay, no, now is not the time to try to lose weight. Now is not the time to go super hard in the gym. I want blood flow. I want to nourish my body and get it prepared for the next cycle. Like being able to like learn those things is super important. Something that I tell my clients often, and people listening here, like if you're trying to like lose fat, for example, in my opinion, most women should not try to lose fat in their luteal phase. In fact, I almost want to say at all. Like your
He
follicular
calls
phase,
binging.
yeah, seriously, like your
Yeah.
your your follicular phase is a great time to focus on fat loss
Mhm.
and muscle building. But your luteal phase, like you need to be okay with taking a 2 week break every month. If you're really trying to make a long, and I'm not talking about like your bodybuilding, that's a whole nother conversation. But like if you're just trying to like lose weight and keep it off long term and keep optimal metabolic health, being okay with taking 2 week breaks is super important. That doesn't mean that in those 2 weeks you go off the rails, but you nourish
Exactly. I
yourself.
was about to say.
Yeah, yeah. But you
Not a license to go to the bakery and go wild. It's like just
yeah.
maintain, just take a step back.
Absolutely. And I think a reason a lot of people do that, and I'll talk about this too, is like because you're coming at it from either a place of empowerment or impulse. And when we come at
Mhm.
when women come at it from a place of impulse, they tend to now they're breaking a rule. Now they're crossing a line. And humans in our nature, when we cross lines, we're gonna go balls to the walls with it. We're just gonna go
Mhm.
crazy. So when we ignore our need for carbs because someone's telling us, oh, you don't need them, you just need more fat. You need to eat more fat on your ribeye. You need to whatever. And this person really does need this cortisol suppressing agent and they're not getting it. Eventually they're just going to cave. And when it's a cave
Mhm.
instead of a choice, you go way harder and you end up binging. You end up going to the bakery and going crazy. And it's because it's all cascaded from you simply not just giving yourself permission to have a little bit of
Right.
sweet potato because a lot of this
Right.
is physiological. I know like psychology plays into it, but your hormones and your neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, they all play a role in how we impulsively react towards food.
Right. That's what I think people don't give hormones enough credit. And people like in the kind of bro dieting space, they spend a lot of time just talking about calories and calories out. It's willpower. God bless people like Greg Doucette, and BioLane and all these guys that have these calorie tracking apps and cookbooks about weight loss. Yeah, your hormones actually run the show.
Hmm.
This is what people don't give it credit for. And again, this continues to happen after you finish having a reproductive cycle. It's everyone. Our hormones are really running the show. There are these chemical signal messengers that are telling your body what to do, essentially. And so I'm sure people that listen to this have felt that before, where it's like, I am not in control here. I mean, and I know you and I have talked before about binge eating disorder, that I've struggled with it. I've lost 100 pounds 3 separate times in my life. I know you have struggled with eating disorders and binge eating disorder and all, and all of those things. You know what it's like when you're in your disorder, when you're in that disease, and it's like you're on autopilot. It's like you don't have a choice. Like you're just doing it. And I think that one of the things that we can do to avoid getting in that place of binging is have this knowledge and respect for our hormones, right?
Yeah. And I think actually that kind of plays into this title that I thought of as you were talking when you were sharing your story, where we start to get desperate. And while men do this, men do get desperate at times. I mean, I know someone that had bulimia. I definitely was one of those, but it's a lot more rare. A lot of times men can just kind of shrug it off. I find that women get a lot more desperate than men do, especially when it comes to health, like weight loss and fat loss and like whatever. And so it's like that idea of like the desperate woman and like the length that she's what she's willing to do, what she's willing to go through to obtain this goal. And I think oftentimes that's how, because what I often try to do so I can better, obviously because I'm not a woman, so I try to figure out how I can be more empathetic towards my clients. And I really try to reverse engineer like how they got into that situation in the first place. And obviously, like that could be a whole nother podcast about culture, society, the way that women are objectified, and sex sells, blah blah blah, perfectionism, blah blah blah. But I think that in all of that, women often become super desperate, and in the moment, they really don't take the time to take a step back and try to figure, okay, what's the best way? It's not about the best way to do it. It's about what's the quickest way. And we reverse that to the best, right? It's like, oh, this is okay. So carnivore, alternate day fasting, 36-hour fast. That's the best way. No. That's the fastest way. And even that's arguable, because you could end up doing something detrimental where you put all that weight back on anyways. But it's like, it's really hard to see it when you get into that tunnel vision. And I guess the reason I even want to bring that up, and I kind of want to get your thought when you hear that phrase, the desperate woman, what you think, because when I think of it, I think of someone that is so passionate about trying to get to a certain goal that they're willing to hurt themselves along the way to get there. And I think that it's being able to recognize, okay, am I being desperate right now, or am I trying to be healthy? And can I take a step back if can I, one, have the humility to recognize I'm acting desperate, and B, can I take a step back and go, okay, how can I focus on healing first? And then if some of my goals are byproducts of healing, that's great. And if not, I need to change my goals.
Yeah, I think, and something I talk about a lot, and I have to check myself. I mean, I'm 7 months postpartum. I am not to my pre-baby body by any means at all. I would, I would like to lose a little bit of weight, but I know I'm breastfeeding. I'm not sleeping full nights. I'm doing my best right now. So I have to give myself a lot of grace. And I have to remind people constantly to, instead of going at it as like, I need to drop all this weight, to looking at your overall health, right? Like looking at other markers, like how is your sleep? How is your energy? How is your mood? All of these things come back to the health of your mitochondria, as well as having healthy cortisol melatonin patterns and leptin being able to signal to your brain, because leptin is supposed to dock to your hypothalamus when you sleep every night, usually around midnight, right? We have a built-in mechanism as a mammal to, we have bears that hibernate through the winter. We're supposed to have that hibernation period from 12 to 2 every night. And that's when we do our deeper repair processes. And that's when leptin docks the hypothalamus. So if that's not happening for us, this communication pattern is not happening, our melatonin and cortisol patterns are all messed up. Weight loss is going to be really freaking hard. And so sometimes you have to back up out of the whole weight loss thing. And let's say, all right, I want to work on rebalancing my hormones, because once you come at the whole health thing from balanced hormones, it's a lot easier. And I learned that while trying to get pregnant, I was trying to balance my hormones. Obviously, they were out of whack because I couldn't hold a pregnancy, and my body wasn't even healthy enough to do IVF at that point, which is like, you think it's a sure thing, but it's not. um, if you don't have healthy mitochondria, IVF's not going to work for you. So I had to back up out of that whole like thing. And when I was in that process of creating healthy mitochondria and rebalancing my hormones, I ended up losing 30 pounds without actually trying to lose weight because I was trying to get pregnant, right? So
Hmm.
if you're trying to get pregnant, you don't want to be on a weight loss journey, but I ended up losing 30 pounds without trying because I was focusing for the first time in my life on having balanced hormones and healthy mitochondria. And so sometimes there's like a little bit of surrender that needs to happen for people where it's like, I know you're desperate to lose the weight and you're uncomfortable and this, that, and the other, but let's go to root cause because you can have coffee for breakfast every day and do fasted workouts and starve yourself and make yourself miserable, but you're going to end up really messing up your thyroid badly.
Yeah.
Chronic low T3 and I'd love to talk here you're from a clinician standpoint about how often you're seeing the low T3.
Uh-huh.
Low T3 is like a huge problem. It was something that I was dealing with. Um, and that is going to make your, resting metabolic rate a lot lower. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I just kind of like vomited a bunch of stuff, but if we can
No,
kind of change how we look at things, I think that's going to be key.
yeah, no, absolutely, 1000%. I can't agree more. And so, kind of answer your question on the T3, I definitely see that. I see it more on the lower end. I've never really seen it bottomed out, but to be fair, most of the clients that come to me are already on thyroid medication. And
Oh,
so
wow.
like, well, because it's I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I do catch some early and that's great. But a lot of the times people I work with have been broken for a really long time.
Long
And
time. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to fix years of, they've been keto since, they were really bad. They were on thyroid medication. They went keto 5 years ago and they've been strict keto for 5 years. And I'm like having to
Mm-hmm.
like, undo physiological insulin resistance and, get their sex hormones where they should be. And then not to mention they tend to be people or women that jumped into this around 38, 39, 40, 41. And so by
Yep.
the time they
That's
get to
when I
me,
did it.
they're going through perimenopause, which is a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother layer, helping them. So basically you're trying to fix what was created and then also help them put themselves in the best position to go through this beautiful transition in a woman's life
Mm-hmm.
and helping them do that. So I usually see like a more of a synthetic normal level of T3, but I definitely know there's a couple things. One, something I do see a lot is cellular hypothyroidism. And for people that don't know what that is where your cells are inflamed due to chronic cortisol. And basically what's happening is even though your body's creating T3, the T3 can't get past the cell membrane. And so you're not firing the Krebs cycle off like you should. NAD is not being produced. And so your mitochondria basically is just super inefficient. And so even though you have all these cells and you are exercising, your body's not burning near as, like, if we're going to talk about like how that translates into like calories, that you're not burning near as many calories as you should be at your level of activity, health, all that, because your cells are unhealthy. You have extremely inefficient mitochondrial function. Your ATP, you just don't produce ATP like you should. You're physiologically insulin resistant. Your cells are inflamed, which is another stressor, which fires cortisol more. So it ends up creating this internal vicious cycle. And so I see that a lot, and having to, showing them how carbs at the right times suppress cortisol and allow your body to get out of that inflamed cycle, which allows your cells to heal, which allows T3 to re-enter the cell, which allows the mitochondria to heal, which allows ATP to start getting produced at a normal and efficient rate. And that process can take time. It's actually something I was going to ask you when we talk about that, getting out of that desperate mindset and the healing mindset. This is a conversation I have to have with clients often, is like, I tell them, because like, for example, with my coaching, it's a 3-month commitment. Like, I'm always like, listen, you cannot just work with me for 30 days. I'm not doing that because
Mm-hmm.
nothing good happens in 30 days, especially generally with these things that I have to fix, or that we have to fix. What I usually see, like, it could be anywhere from 3 months to a year, like sometimes when it comes to like finally like their cells acting the way they should. And And it's interesting because like we'll be tracking food, and let's say that I have a tracking client and they do track macros. I'll have them on the same calories on day one as I do on day 380. But yet on day 380, their body just starts letting go of weight and body fat. Why is that? If calories are the only thing that matters, obviously something metabolically has shifted. And so what kind of is like the time span on that? Because I think it's important for people that are listening to this. Are going, oh, I want to heal. It's like, I think that sounds nice, but I really don't think that they process, okay, how long is that going to take for me?
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I actually combine in a lot of the circadian work, I can see people feeling better, having more energy, and sleeping better within a week.
Mm.
So that I can help people, because I didn't think the whole light thing was legit. Like, it was introduced to me years ago, and I was like, whatever. But once you kind of understand how the HPA axis works in response to light, you can actually shift a lot of things pretty quickly when you dial in your light hygiene, when you dial in a lot of these practices. So I can get people sleeping better, feeling better, having more energy pretty quickly. But for the weight loss to happen, right, to get leptin to come back into like a good normal range, that can take, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, it just depends on on how dysregulated people are.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what I tell. I'm like, I don't want you dieting, I don't want you tracking, I don't want you, fasting and kind of doing all these extra things right off the bat. I just want to get these habits in place for you: meal timing, macronutrients, get things back, because people are coming to me either fasting all day till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They've been doing that for years. They've been doing keto for years, drinking coffee, like all that, like coffee for alone by itself, black. I did that for years too, because I thought if I start eating, I'm going to gain a bunch of weight. And that's the biggest fear that they have, is if they start eating breakfast, they're going to gain weight. If they add in like a couple days a week with some seasonal whole food carbs, they're going to gain a bunch of weight. So people are scared, and you kind of have to. I like the circadian work too, because it supports the neurotransmitters,
Mm.
dopamine and serotonin. Those are synthesized in UVA morning light,
Mhm.
and that helps things quite a bit as well. And so I like to come at it from that holistic place. And I do see people feeling better and having results quicker when I do it with the light protocols also, because there's a host of scientific data about obesity, thyroid hormone cancers, and artificial light at night. Like, the literature is extensive at this point. People are like, oh, it's not going to do anything. But when you really start to understand it and dive into that literature, it's pretty powerful. And so if you can get people getting that deep sleep, getting that good melatonin production, what melatonin actually does is shrinks the space between respiratory proteins in the mitochondria, so electrons can tunnel a lot more efficiently, right? So we talk about energy production, the body making this beautiful deuterium depleted water so that there's more coherence in the body and the metabolism begins to work better. The first thing I'm wanting people to do is fix the cortisol melatonin pattern and make sure that their body is endogenously. You can't get this from melatonin via the gut. It's not going to work the same way, but make sure your body is endogenously making melatonin so we can begin that process of mitochondrial repair, right?
Yeah, that was a lot. I'm learning. I'm in school right now. This is insane. It's been a while. I mean, I learn a lot from people I talk to, but this is you're making my mind go places. I'm enjoying this very much. Okay, so something that I am curious about. When it comes to the infradian rhythm, how do you help someone that is postmenopausal? Because that's something that is very new to me. The idea that women are still on a 28-day cycle post menopause. I would love for you to educate all of us, including me, on that. What are the signs? What are a couple of steps that they can do to help start that process?
Yeah, to kind of figure out where you are in that process, a couple of things. I have women either do it by the moon, right? They can choose which phase of the moon they want to go by. But also, I did an awesome interview with a lady named Kayla Osterhoff, and she does this with menopausal ladies. She'll have them kind of chart like, what are there's like a couple of days a month where you just feel like a rock star, like you feel amazing energy. Those are your ovulation days. So I want you to think about charting that time, like maybe go a couple of months, and you're going to notice, and most women do this, like there's just like a couple of days where you're like, I feel like a freaking rock star. Everything's amazing. And so you kind of use that as like your ovulation day. And a lot of women are going to find that's going to correlate with either a new moon or a full moon. So that makes it even easier. And then you just look chart it that way, right? So if you just ovulated, then boom, you're heading into the luteal phase where you have to be a little bit more cautious, low key, don't push yourself as hard. And then 2 weeks later, you're kind of, even though you're not in a bleed, your body is kind of going that through that physiological kind of bleed thing, and you're going to have more estrogen, more energy, more ability to handle stressors for a couple of weeks, and then you get that it's, and it repeats. So that's typically the way that I have women who are in menopause and don't have a bleed, or even women who have amenorrhea and are trying to get their cycle back, and they're like, how can I, and I'm like, I don't want you fasting and I don't want you dieting, period. If you have amenorrhea, we need to just pretend like you're just always in your luteal phase until we get the cycle back.
Yeah.
um but that's basically how I approach it with women who are not having a bleed.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I really
Yeah.
that was good. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Um, okay, so the next thing I was kind of thinking about was the seasonal food. So something that I've noticed is and I kind of want your opinion on this. So I find I tend to eat because of my running, I have carbs year round because I time them around my training. So some of my fruits and vegetables are not seasonal, but I try my best to when something's in season, ratio out much more of that food rather than others. So like when strawberries are in season, I am just slamming strawberries instead of other things. When exotic fruits are in season because it's the only time they're in the stores, I'll eat the exotic fruits and I'll try to stay away from the rest. So like do you feel like someone eating seasonally, like I guess this is my question. Do you feel like it's imperative that they only eat what's in season, or do you feel like as long as it's the majority, they can have the one-off, the frozen berries with their smoothie on Monday morning? Or do you feel like, okay, no, if those aren't in season, don't eat them?
I mean, obviously, if gold standard, you're only eating local seasonal. However, I think women benefit from cycling carbs throughout the year. And if you're living in Canada in the middle of January, there's literally nothing growing. And so I look more at cellar stable stuff like squashes, potatoes, things like that, that you can keep in a cellar, that you can like sit out on a shelf and it's not going to go bad in like 2 days. So a banana in the middle of January in Canada is like a really poor idea, in my opinion. Anything that's in the middle of winter that you're sitting out and it goes bad really quickly, bad idea. Um, so again, the cellar stable type of stuff, and then lower sugar stuff like frozen berries. I don't have a huge problem with that in the winter time because it's a little bit more lower sugar. I think we should stick to lower sugar in the winter, but again, we do need to. I think women are going to benefit from popping in a couple carb days here and there if they're doing keto. And then with like high fat stuff like avocado and coconut, I think you can get away with stuff that's again lower sugar and higher fat to have that a little bit more year round. I know some of my like strict quantum health circadian colleagues would probably disagree with me on that, but just what I've seen actually in practice with people and myself, those are the kind of the rules and things I implement with people. I have a quantum nutrition course that helps people navigate seasonality and look at things.
Ooh.
But your body, I worked hard on this whole like quantum nutrition course to explain like light code, your food, the circadian aspect of food, circadian rhythms, all of that stuff. Deuterium, which is a huge topic. Um, in the summertime, our bodies can deplete deuterium. Deuterium slows down the mitochondria. Deuterium ages us. And this is Dr. Laszlo Boros is the world's leading scientist on deuterium. And to get pregnant, I did a deuterium depletion protocol, which is it's a whole rabbit hole to go down. But the high sugar summer foods are very high in deuterium. But in the summertime, our body has the ability to deplete deuterium because we have strong UVB light, right? And it's natural. So we eat these foods out in the sun and our body can actually metabolize it better. Our hormones are different in the summer. Microbiome is different in the summer. All this stuff, right? So that's how I kind of look at it. And then winter is like do your best, right? Cellar stable foods. If you want to have the higher fat like coconut or avocado, don't eat 10 of them a day, but I think it's okay. And then like frozen berries, things like that. So I know that was a long answer.
No, no, and oh my gosh, I'm so fascinated. You have no idea the rabbit hole you just opened in my head. So, because I have had this theory, and I haven't dug into it because it's just right as of right now, it's not part of my clinical work or my work with clients. But so I was in the Philippines a couple weeks ago. So this next part is just for my enjoyment. So I was in the Philippines, and I noticed like they're very close to the equator, they're south of the equator. It's never really winter there. It's always tropical summer, always.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed while I was there, I obviously don't eat like some of the processed food they eat, but I eat like we were on this island called the island of Negros, and there was volcanoes everywhere and volcanic soil. And you could just go up to a tree and pick a fruit and eat it. And what I noticed while I was there was I was still eating like they were frying fish in coconut oil, and I was eating like pork and fried pork and all the fat off the pork, but I was eating a ton of fruit. I mean, sour soaps, like 7 different species of bananas, food you can't even get in the States. Like I ate a lot of it and I just got leaner. I just kept losing weight the whole time. I just kept melting. And I was like, I can't do that in America. Like I recognize like and my first thought, obviously, because I think we're trained to do this, I went to like GMO and genetic meat, and like, but then I was like, wait, no, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's the sun. And literally that crossed my mind. I was like,
it's a light story.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why when you're talking, I'm freaking out because I was like, it's the sun. There's something about the sun. I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. But I know that the fact that I'm exposed to the sun for 8 hours a day is making a difference on how I'm eating these fruit, like how I'm eating these foods.
100%. The sun expands the water. So our bodies are 99% water molecule, right? Everyone says 70% water, whatever. All the cells in our body are surrounded by water, and it's like a battery, right? So the sun actually, when it hits your skin, it expands that water battery 4 times. So it increases your metabolism. It increases your body's ability to create energy. I mean, and there's also that circadian aspect of getting the light on your skin. So there's so much that the sun actually can increase your metabolism, believe it or not. And there's a lot of scientific study to show this as well. And so, we're really only supposed to get 1/3 of our energy from food. As you think about the mitochondria, again, kind of what I mentioned earlier, right? How melatonin shrinks the space between respiratory proteins so that electrons can tunnel. When our body is processing energy, it's an electron moving through the mitochondrial transport chain, right? Food, electron, light, electron, grounding your body, touching the earth and the conductivity of the earth, pulling electrons into your body. So what I have people do is kind of like this game of like, how many electrons can I gather? How much can I pull into my body? And then in the US, right, you're sitting under fake light, you're indoors, you're not grounded, you're not under the sun. Guess what that's doing? Non-native EMF from our phones, from our wearables. I hate wearables because it dehydrates the cellular water in our body. It actually, Dr. Gerald Pollack in his lab showed that when you are exposed to non-native EMF in the form of Wi-Fi, it takes the cellular water down by 15 to 20%. What does that do? Slows your metabolism, slows your body's ability to create energy, stops the coherence within the body, how the organ systems can communicate with one another. And so you were probably outdoors under the sun, connected, probably touching the earth, right? And you're eating all this fruit and all this stuff, and you're like, I'm just gonna get fat, and your body like drops a bunch of weight and you feel leaner because you're in this huge electron rich environment and your body is like charging like this beautiful battery. Then we come back home, like I record on my podcast out here because I'm getting infrared, red light, I'm getting all the light frequencies to recharge my body and kind of like mitigate the fact that I'm on a computer and I'm hooked into all this stuff, right? It serves as like a Faraday cage, but we don't realize and we don't look at our bodies in response to these other things like artificial light and technology, and we're constantly exposed to them. And then we're like, why is it that I can't lose weight and my mitochondria is not working and I've got thyroid issues? And I'm like, you're not outside for morning light. You're not getting sunrise and UVA. Your body's not getting that signal to bring you online every day. And then you're spending your whole day inside of an office under artificial light, plugged up to technology. Your body's energy battery is literally draining all day. And this is causing circadian mismatch, inflammation, ROS. So electrons are getting lost in that electron transport chain and you're not healthy, right? So
I have never felt so called out in my life.
No, it's everybody though. It's everybody, you know?
No, I love it. Oh my gosh. This was, yes, this was good. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. I feel like we have to have a part 2. I don't feel like this conversation is over. I don't feel like this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm
in. Just let me know.
So let everybody know where they can find you for now.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Sarah Kleiner Wellness. And then my website, sarahkleinerwellness.com. I have a ton of courses that talk about all of this stuff. I have a nutrition course that's like, seasonal local nutrition, implementing strategic keto, carnivore, how to carb cycle, infradian rhythm, all the stuff we talked about. I have a 21-day leptin reset program to help you reset your leptin and implement all these circadian principles. I've got a ton of stuff. So check that out on Instagram. And yeah, I'm going to put this on my podcast too, which is called the Evolving Wellness Podcast, where I talk about all these topics because they're really interesting. And I feel like a lot of people in the health space are just totally missing the point,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll make sure everything she just said is in the show notes. Y'all can check those out. And please go over and check out her podcast as well. Show her some love. So, Sarah, I enjoyed this very much. I'm definitely going to have you back on for a part 2. And we'll be able to dive in a little bit deeper.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.